Narcotics, call Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Welcome to this H&I workshop at GRCNA 37. I'm supposed to introduce everybody, and this is Sherry H. And we're going to be talking about some things. We've got a few topics that we want to cover. Some of these topics are going to be informational, but most of them hopefully will be inspirational. And hopefully you'll leave here hopeful in this fellowship and what you can and what this fellowship can do, what you can do for the fellowship and what the fellowship can do for you. And so I'm going to go first. I'm at it called Jason.
Hey, Jason.
A long time ago, when using got too hard for me, there was an intervention took place in my life. Family tried to take over and tell me that I was in trouble and tell me that I looked awful and tell me that the drugs were having their way with me. And of course I didn't listen. Like a good addict, I did what we always. I kicked them out of my house is what I did. And they took my children and everything and left me at home with my drugs. And a few days of being lonely, I decided I would let them help me. And they sent me to a treatment center. And, the self-centered, self-obsessive craziness that was my active addiction, I soon found within 2 or 3 days of being at this treatment center that everybody was talking about me. Every meeting we went to, every little class I went to, they weren't talking to anybody else. They were all talking about me. They were talking about. They always talked about my DOC. Every meeting seemed to be about me, and I just hated the whole idea of recovery. I hated that. Seemed like I was always getting talked to by professionals, and they were always telling me that I was. They weren't ever talking about anybody else's deal. So it was just maybe the way that the cards fell that particular week at that particular treatment center. But on about the third night that I was there, they rounded all 4 of us up. There was 4 people in treatment at the time. And they took us to this meeting. And we got bussed in, and it was. They said it was an NA meeting, and everyone there was smiling, and everyone there was hugging, and everyone there was happy, and they all identified themselves as addicts. And I knew I was an addict, but I was not smiling, I was not happy, and I definitely didn't have this freedom that they were telling me about. They were saying that they had freedom. And it gave me a little bit of hope. It gave me a little bit of hope. It was an H&I panel that I heard share this message, and it changed me. It changed my view. And of course, 2 days later, I checked myself out of treatment, cured, and I went home and I started going to NA meetings and. Regular NA meetings that were, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to change. I went to about 70 meetings. I got, 70 meetings in a row, which is what it was required of me to live where I was living at the time. And I went back out. And my story changed a little bit after that. Instead of having family that was looking after me, my family kind of turned me loose, and wound up the state took over my care. The state took over the care of, they locked me up, and from that position. I heard about these folks that were taking NA meetings into jails when I was in jail before I got shipped off for the state to care for me, but didn't have any meetings when I was in prison. There was no meetings when I was in prison, and I shipped around a lot. I got home and I got high. Got home and I got high. had 2 years of abstinence being in prison, got out, and I got high, and it progressed real quick. I went from being pretty well able to function to I was waking up in parking lots of liquor stores, just waiting for the door to get open so I could get one more. And I wound up remembering something about those happy people smiling, and which was us. I remember the addicts in recovery who they weren't living the way I was living. And I went back to NA and I got me a white chip, and I haven't gone back out. And I think that my story, although it may seem a little odd that I'm sharing an H&I message, but that H&I meeting, that's what I remember. I remembered about NA. I don't remember those force meetings that I attended. I was one of those people that came in a little late and left a little early. I was there at the meeting just long enough to get my 70 meetings in when I was straight. But the meetings that I remember, the ones I was taken to from treatment. And so when I got clean this time, I looked for the happy, smiling people. I looked for the huggers. And I found them really quickly. I mean, we, us H&I folks, we're usually the ones smiling and hugging and inviting people to come to service committees and inviting people to come and go and do service with us. And I was lucky. I was really lucky. In my area at the time, there was a thriving H&I committee. We had about 14 people in our committee, and I didn't open this, but this has 2 H&I handbooks in it. And every week that we had a committee meeting, which was once a month, we would come in an hour early and we would study this handbook as a committee. We act just like a lit study where we go through the basic texts in our regular meetings, or where we go through our how and why in a lit study. We would come in and we would study the sections of the H&I handbook that pertain to our committee. We had a jail meeting. We had a youth we went into a YDC, a youth detention center, and we also went into a detox facility. So it gave us 3 specific areas of the handbook that we could study, and we all learned how to do it according to NA. We all learned the right way to do it, and we became pretty proficient in NA service in that committee. We made what I consider to be lifelong friends in that committee, and most of the people, not all the people, there's still a high relapse rate in committees. It's the same as in regular meetings, I would say, but most of the people that were committed to that committee and stuck with it are still clean today. So that speaks volumes to me about what H&I service work can do for somebody that wants to stay clean. However, these people were the ones that showed me hope. I did not have enough clean time to speak in a H&I setting, but I had plenty of clean time to get in the car and go with them to the committee meeting. I had plenty of clean time to go out to eat with them after the committee. I had plenty of clean time to go and sit with them at the one of the facilities. I couldn't go to the jail yet, but I could go and I could sit in at the detox facility and I could listen to them share to using, or just people that had just taken their last hit, and oftentimes passionately, but always smiling and happy and hopeful, and it changed me. It absolutely changed me. It became something that I put on my calendar. It was something I did every week. I looked forward to it. It was until I got enough clean time to share in one of those. I wanted to make every one of them, and I guess I was a good newcomer, I got a lot of phone numbers. You know, if anybody had more clean time than me, I wanted to know their name, I want to know their number. It needed to be in my phone. And something changed in me when I got clean. I'm a man, and men don't really, we don't read directions, you know, and we or instructions, and we don't ask for help, right? But that was pretty much what y'all told me. You said, these are the instructions right here, and you need to read them, and then, you know, if you don't know what to do, you got to ask for help. And I got a lot of phone numbers. A lot of my predecessors helped me stay involved and helped me stay involved in my personal recovery. As I stayed clean, and I became a panel leader at the detox facility until I got around 2 years clean. When I got 2 years clean, I became the panel leader for the jail. And I went to the Whitfield County Jail every Thursday night for 2 years. Every Thursday night for 2 years, I made a panel of my peers, my NA brothers. We would go in, we would carry the message to inmates, and then we would go home. Things changed, you know. I learned a lot by doing this service for NA. One thing I learned was the guards, they don't know what we're doing. You know, we know what we're doing when we carry a message into a jail or into a detox facility. We know what we're saying to addicts when they're out there struggling, wanting to find hope. But these guards didn't know what we were doing. The guards thought we were counseling these members, these inmates. And our attendance at these meetings started to fail. During this 2 years, we would get, about every month, we would get 12 men from cells, random cells. We didn't know where they were coming from. We didn't know if they had a drug problem. And the next week when we came in, we would have about 8. And then the next week we'd have about 3. And eventually we'd get down to 1. So once somebody got the courage to figure out who to talk to, because we don't like to talk to people in authority, right? Y'all know that, right? Once somebody got the courage to figure out who was in charge at the jail, we found out that it had been so long since NA had contacted the facility and found out who was in charge and how things worked. They knew they were supposed to let us in on Thursday at a certain time and usher us to this specific place in the jail and call inmates to the meeting, but they didn't know what we were doing anymore. The guards had moved on. The rotation had moved on. The staff had changed. And we got PR involved, and we did another presentation to the jail. And then we started actually going to the cell blocks and opening the door and saying, NA's here, does anybody need a meeting? And we started actually getting members or inmates to come to our meetings that wanted or needed or desired to hear the message of NA. And it changed NA in our community, because when people started getting out of jail, the ones that wanted to be clean and wanted to stay clean, they had heard a message. Some of the things that I'm telling you are how NA changes lives, right? It's how NA changes communities and how H&I makes that happen. So, might be a little jumping around here, but this is my experience. So after sitting on this panel in this jail, what I did was I started a home group, a local home group on Thursday night. There was a need. There was no meeting on Thursday night, and me and some addicts decided we would start an NA meeting, which blessed me in my recovery. By the way, it blessed me in my recovery. Anytime I've ever been of services fellowship, I've grown. So we start this home group, and we go through all of the struggles with finding a location and making sure that we're self-supporting and all of the things that go along with doing things the NA way. And I couldn't do my jail commitment anymore. I had to pass that off to somebody else. And I found out about rotation for maybe the first time, spiritual rotation, what it meant to love something and let it go and let somebody else care for it. And it hurt. So my sponsor said, well, why don't you just go on up there again to the main committee, and why don't you volunteer to be on the committee, to be why don't you go be an admin on the H&I committee? I said, I guess that's a great idea. And little did I know that it would change my life as well. So I had an excellent chairperson. They voted me in to be the vice chair. And the vice chair of my area was tasked with not only filling panels positions when panel leaders couldn't make their commitments, but we were tasked with walking with the chairperson. So if the chairperson had a committee meeting in that region or at area, the vice chairperson went with them. And my chairperson taught me how to manage a committee when they're all over the place. My chairperson taught me how to make a report to my area. So what happened in my committee wasn't lost somewhere in the sauce. Y'all ever heard lost in the sauce? Sometimes we've got. How many of y'all know somebody in NA that talks real good? Everybody knows somebody that talks real good in NA. All right, so sometimes we get people that talk real good in service, and we lose the information because they fail to write it down. And my chairperson taught me that if I was making a report, we can't leave it up to a drug addict who, some of them can't even read, some of us can't read, to take dictation. Nobody needs to be writing down what I'm saying. I need to write down my report. I need to turn it in to be accountable. And that changed me. These are all growing experiences for me through service and through H&I. So I started writing reports behind my chair. We would both turn in a report to the committee. He would turn in a report to area, and by the time I became the chairperson at area, I was ready to do my commitment. And I kept my commitment. One of the responsibilities of the chairperson is to attend the regional subcommittee meeting. And so quarterly, every 3 months, I'd get to go to the regional H&I committee, and I started meeting people from all over the state. So here I am, I'm doing local service. I'm meeting addicts on the ground floor. The using addicts or the freshly cleaned addicts in these detox facilities and jails. I'm starting to participate with addicts in the home group on the ground floor, and I'm also doing service work with addicts with clean time who are teaching me how to do functional things with our fellowship, our service structure, which keeps our fellowship alive and free as well. And I start getting involved with more people outside of my area at region, and just like our basic text says, the broader the base, the higher the point of freedom, the more people I had in my phone book. So I kept asking for numbers. The more people I could help because I knew somebody there or I knew somebody here. And so it started to keep me clean. I started to rotate out as my area H&I chair, and somebody got me to be the area or the regional H&I secretary. Now, this is the guy who wanted to give a verbal report, remember? I wanted to be a verbal reporter, and somebody taught me into writing minutes. So what I didn't know was what she was really doing was she was teaching me how to make a commitment, and she was making me grow up in recovery. See, a regional H&I commitment is a 2-year commitment. It's not like most of us. I say most of us. That's not right of me. It seems like most addicts, when we take on a commitment in NA, it's really we just say it with our mouth. We write a check that our ass won't cash. And we say we're going to show up, and we say we're going to do what needs to be done, but we don't. And I got asked to be a part of a committee and do something I'd never done. and to do it well for 2 years. And what she told me was, don't worry about it. I did it before, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Mm-hmm. So if anybody's got a problem with my secretarian skills, y'all know who to talk to. I just threw that in.
He was a great secretary, I'm just saying.
But I got to sit there with my heroes every 3 months, and I got to hear them passionately talk about this fellowship that saved their life. And anybody with any clean time in here knows that when you ain't got none and you see somebody's got some, you want what they got. And these were my heroes. They showed up month in and month out. They had their reports. They did what was asked of them, and they kept this one girl in my area always says this. They were a beacon of hope. They were a beacon of hope for me. I just, if I needed a little bit of hope, I would see them. That's in my head. I got to show up, because if I don't, I'm going to let somebody down. I'm going to let somebody down that's dependent on me. And that's how important service is to the addict that's yet to come. I stay clean by doing NA service. I then took on a 2-year commitment to be the vice chair and another 2-year commitment to be the H&I chair. So H&I services will keep you clean. It'll keep you clean. Staying involved will keep you clean. I know people now all over the world in H&I, not just all over the state or all over my area. And just briefly, I want to share about the future of H&I. I'd like to say a little bit of something about that. A lot of the time, through my experience in H&I, I've found people, areas, representatives that have these terrible problems. I know this room is full of people, right? People that are service enthusiasts or people that do H&I service one way or the other. And we have a hard time filling panels. We have a hard time finding volunteers. We have a hard time, getting people to come to our committees, And what I found is we don't smile a lot anymore. We don't hug as much anymore. We don't mentor as much anymore. And Lord, I know I do it. We blame the newcomer. They're not willing enough. All they want to do is smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and Red Bulls, right? All they want to do is chase some girls or chase some boys. That's all they want to do. Well, it's not up to them to know what to do. It's up to us to show them what to do. And if it doesn't look fun to us, it's not going to be fun to them. If I had $1 for every time one of my predecessors talked about the bullshit that goes on in that area, or talks in a bad way or a sad way or a derogatory way about service around newcomers, I'd be a rich man. And I say that because, listen, if I'm a newcomer, I don't want to go nowhere where there's a bunch of bullshit, y'all. I don't want to go nowhere where there's a bunch of chaos. Now, not that there still won't be chaos and bullshit there, right? But part of this thing called recovery is we gotta accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. If you want to fill your panels, you got to make those people feel important. Okay, and if they're not important in a big I, little you. But you're important to those people. They got to feel important to the newcomer. If you can make a newcomer feel important to a newcomer, you have won them. You've won them to NA service. And NA service, there is no paycheck for NA service. The paycheck we get for NA service is one day, a long time from now. It's very rarely paid off in spades. You very rarely get it right up front. But one day, you're going to walk into a meeting, or you're going to be at the grocery store, or you're going to be at the gas station, and somebody's going to come up to you and say, hey, I thank you. I remember this one time I was broken, and you came in and you said there's hope, and you don't ever have to use again. And I heard it, and it went home. And I just want to say thank you. And if that day hasn't happened for you yet, right? If it hadn't happened for you yet, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being of service to this fellowship. Because without us, there is no NA. NA will wither away and die. Without a PR committee to make the flyers, without a PR committee to take the presentations into the jail, they're all gonna forget why we're there. They're gonna start treating us like counselors. They're gonna expect us to walk their way instead of our way, and we're gonna just dissipate and go away. Without H&I panels, without H&I committees, we don't need an area subcommittee anymore. If we start delegating our authority through our trusted servants to speak on our behalf, we won't need an area service committee. And then what's our money going for in the baskets? What are we sending money up the service structure for if not to help carry the message to the addict who still suffers? We forget sometimes that it's not about coffee and about paying rent and about, it's really, really, truthfully, guys, it's about carrying the message. That $1 that goes in the basket, or 10, that committee that we go and sit in and listen to some asshole that doesn't know how to share their recovery in a committee setting, right? Doesn't know how to effectively communicate yet, that doesn't know that there's concepts that teach us how to do that yet, go and sit in there and try his best to represent his group. What he's really doing is he's sitting there saving a spot for somebody that's going to need to have their ass saved, their life saved somewhere in the near future. That's why we got to have GSRs. That's why we got to have area chairs and area secretaries and treasurers and H&I committees and PR committees. Because without the service structure, we're going to be a bunch of groups left to do it our way. And it's hard. It's hard when the groups start to carry H&I. It's hard when the groups start to try to be their own PR. That's why these committees were created that's why they were created in the beginning. So if I could give you one thing to take home with you, it's do your fellowship, your local fellowship, a service, and take a service commitment. And then do it better than the person that was there before you. You don't have to be the best. Just do it a little bit better than the person that was there before you. And whoever's coming up behind you, show them what to do. When your commitment's over, you don't have to stay. But leave that person in a better place than you were when you got there. Leave that person with hope that they can take your position and try to build on it to create a better NA. That's it.
I'm Sherry Addict.
Hey, Sherry.
I'm very excited to be here. I've already cried like 5 times. So, we have some guidelines that we wanted to share with you, and Jason hit so many of them. The first one that we want to talk about, what is H&I? H&I stands for Hospitals and Institutions, and we are a committee that takes meetings into those who cannot get out to regular meetings. That's real important, y'all. I'm going to put this out there, not to offend anybody for not serving, but to help you understand what we need. There are 31 prisons in Georgia, just in the state of Georgia. Can anybody guess how many we are actually serving, taking an H&I meeting into? 6. So if you leave here with anything, I hope that you hear something that makes you want to be just one person. All we need really is one person in this meeting to say, I'm going to commit to H&I. Because in my area, we know there's addicts not getting a message, our life-saving message. And if all y'all make that choice, there's going to be some addicts getting a message. like this would be like 15 people starting H&I, doing H&I, helping H&I. And that would, I cry if you don't, and I cry if you do. So I'm just going to put it like that. We really need you. And, I will tell you how I heard about H&I. I was back in jail, and I was facing 7 years habitual offender. I'd already been to prison. And I was looking at having to go back. And this girl brought a meeting in, and I knew her. She brought a meeting into the jail, and back then, 25 years ago, they let Narcotics Anonymous bring cookies and coffee into the meeting. So I went for the cookies and coffee, honestly, but then I recognized her, and I was like, oh my God, that's someone I used to, get off with under the street lights, in the middle of the night kind of stuff. And I remember seeing her, and I thought, man, she looks good. She looks really good. So I went to the meeting, I got my coffee and cookies, and I listened, and, and I stayed for that meeting, and I was able to talk to her just for a few minutes. We don't have a lot of time inside the jails and prisons. We have a schedule we have to stick to. And when I said, how did you do this? And she said, I did it like one day at a time. And just for today, you can stay clean too. And I said, oh, okay. So she told me she'd be back the next week. Well, I thought I'd be cool and take one of my clean white t-shirts, because that's all we were allowed in jail, was a white t-shirt, and my beautiful colored markers that my parents had sent me, probably for the 15th time that I've been in prison or in jail. And I wrote on the shirt in all different colors, just for today. Just for today. And I thought, I'll just wear this to the meeting. After the meeting, I'll wash it out, and I'll have another clean white t-shirt, because they were washable markers. And, something profound happened. I went to the meeting that next week, and I wore the t-shirt, and I'm, look, just for today, I heard you. So I was able to hear a message in the very beginning before I even had surrendered. And this is what we got to remember. A lot of times when we take a message in, the inmates and the addicts and the treatment centers, they're not quite ready to surrender. They know they need help. They're not ready to admit it, but we can still reach them. We can plant the seed. And, so I wore the t-shirt. I got more coffee. I got more cookies. And I was like, this stuff's pretty good, And it was amazing to me that I was willing to even go after that. I went, for the coffee and cookies, but the next time I went, I really went to show her the shirt that I heard her. Well, that night after lights out, I'm washing out my t-shirt in the sink, and the washable marker, it's got to come out. I need a clean white t-shirt for the next day in jail. And anyway, so I washed it out, lights were out, and I hung it at the end of my bunk to dry. And when I woke up the next morning, lights on at 6 a.m., all the colors had washed out of the shirt except for orange. And it left the J in just, the O in for, and the Y in today. It left joy on my shirt. And, this was 25 years ago, y'all. I didn't know t-shirts were cool in NA or anything like that. I was, I was an addict in jail, So, but I understood that if I stayed clean just for today, I would have joy. Like that, there was no denying that. That's what the message brought me. And that was just what happened for me. And anyway, so I did go to, court, and I told the judge, please, just give me 3 years. I can survive 3 years. Don't give me 7. Just don't give me 7. I can't do 7. That's too much. And his name was Judge Mark Jones, and he said, well, it sounds like you're asking for help. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm asking for. Anything but not 7 years, And so he asked the prosecutor and the public defender, is everybody willing for me to go to treatment? Back then, treatment was a year long, when you were court ordered. So I was court ordered to Spectrum in Miami, and because I was in Key West. I lived, most of my addiction was in Key West. And so they court ordered me there, and they, when the day they took me in shackles. I was shackled by my wrist to my feet and to the chair of the plane. They flew me up there in like a little 7-seater plane that was all shaky, and I was like, yo, officer, man, like if this thing crashes, like I'm bound here. And he's like, yeah, that's what happens when you break the law. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so I was so glad when we landed, and then they took me to that Spectrum, and they said, okay, you sit here for 15 minutes. There's the door if you want to go. We know you're court ordered, but we're not going to make you stay if you don't want this. And I was like, wow. And I kept looking at the door, and I'm like, how far can I get in 15 minutes, Because I was a runner all my life. I'd been running away from home since I was, 14 years old. And I was now in my 30s. And I stayed. And, treatment was different back then. It was about behavior modification. But one thing they always told us is that you need a program when you get out of treatment. You're going to need to do Narcotics Anonymous, and they let H&I come into that facility. And so I didn't know it was called H&I. They just brought a meeting in. That's all I knew, really, So I've now been exposed to H&I a couple times, and, through all of that, I always heard the same message. They found a new way to live. And I just didn't know that I could do it. I got out of that treatment center, and I lasted about 10 months. I picked up a year medallion at a meeting, and no one knew who I was. That's kind of how I wanted it. I didn't want anybody to know me. I didn't want anybody to know I was, Anyway, I picked a sponsor, wasn't going to meetings. That's how I did, and I thought that would work. I thought that would be enough. When after a relapse that lasted about 3 days, I made it back to Narcotics Anonymous, and after staying there for 9 months, I went to my first area, and there was this chick named Anna, and she says, when you get a year, you come do the jail. And I said, no, I'm not going in that jail, It stinks in there, like I've been there. And she goes, no, we'll carry a message. And I was like, it's like what happened for me when I was in there. So I stuck around, and I stayed for the year, so I could do that. And, and I think I went to the area service meeting, and I ended up getting literature chair or something like that, and was getting all this literature, and I read about, H&I handbook, and it was the same handbook. Like, it hasn't changed. The basics are still the same. But, I thought I was doing important service with literature and, that kind of stuff, but because I did get to read like every book that everyone ordered, I thought it was like awesome. It kind of kicked up my disease though a little bit, because people call and say, hey, you got 3 basic texts? I'm like, yeah, I got 3 basic texts. Somebody else called, hey, you got 5 just for today? I'm like, yeah, you meet me over here. So I I shared that with my sponsor, and I'm like, I gotta do something different. And she goes, well, go to the next area and see what they say. Because I picked up the commitment in the middle of the year because there wasn't a literature chair. So, it was good for me because I got to read all the literature, but it also, I was very new, and it was very fresh, that behavior for me. And so anyway, I'm at the next area meeting, and somebody says, and Anna's sharing, we need help. Like, there's all these people in Narcotics Anonymous, and we don't have enough people to take a meeting into the jail. Like, it's an island, a 2-by-4 mile island. We surely have enough people that can take a meeting into a jail. And, and then I stood up and I'm like, we need some help, and, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, Sherry, sometimes H&I has to fold. Okay, I only had like a little over a year clean. And so when I stood up there and I said, fuck y'all, you should be serving and you should be taking one in. And, I wasn't very appropriate, with my response to that. I have since learned to handle obstacles a little better. And they all hugged me during the break and said, keep coming back.
That's right.
But my sponsor had taught me if I don't stand for something, I'll fall for anything. And I wasn't about to fall for H&I folding. There's addicts in there that need a message. I was one of them, and I knew. So I wasn't going to beat anybody up because they weren't serving, but I certainly needed to learn a better way to overcome these obstacles that were coming in our way with not enough people serving and people really thinking that it was okay for H&I to fold. Greg P., he has this, one of my favorite CDs, and it's about the NA symbol, and the service symbol. And, and he talks about early on doing H&I, and they didn't have any money to take literature into the jails, and they didn't even have any money to buy readings. And so they made a copy of a group's readings and took it into the jail to use. And people got upset about that. And he's like, if you get upset about that, you're missing the point. Mm-hmm. You're missing the point of what we're doing here to get this message to addicts. You're missing the point. It's not going anywhere but in an NA meeting. We're not copying it and selling it. We're helping save lives, And it's, if you've never heard that CD, it's so beautiful. It's wonderful. So that was my start of doing H&I, and we ended up having an H&I gratitude dinner because we did not have enough people to serve, but we were still very grateful to have H&I. They didn't make us fold. And so we did it during the regional meeting, and because it was going to be in Key West that quarter, and so South Florida, all of Florida came down to Key West, and we had it there at the Holiday Inn Beachside. And we had a speaker that was, did H&I up in North Florida. And anyway, so we had a gratitude dinner. We pre-sold tickets. We even had T-shirts. Pre-sold those to make money to buy literature to take into the H&I meetings because we had no money. Well, since then, we found out, we're may not supposed to be doing that. You're missing the point, people. Again, if you don't think we need to have funds for H&I, that dollar you put in the basket helps areas give H&I literature to H&I to take into the jails. It's not just buying coffee. It's not just going up to the next level of service. It really is to help buy our literature because we have no basket. We don't pass a basket in the jail. And if your area doesn't have a budget for H&I literature, please say something. Please say something. This isn't right. All right, I'm off on that tangent. I will move on from that. But we got 14 people signed up that night at our area H&I gratitude dinner that was in conjunction with Region. 14 people on a little 2-by-4 mile island. And as big as Georgia is, I know we can get, and 14 people in here, like, we can use it. We could really use your help. How I stayed clean through H&I, I still do the jail meeting where I live in Athens. I go every month. If they would allow me to go more, I would. I have served on the panel, a panel. I have been a panel leader. I have been the area H&I vice chair. I've been the area H&I chair. That's when I started coming to Region. And at Region, Cecil was sitting up here by himself, in the committee meeting. And Cecil's like, hey, yeah, I think I know you. And that was our meeting, He's such a great guy. Anyway, so he's like, well, yeah, we have no secretary. No, we don't have a vice chair. They just told me to be chair and come on in here. And so that's what we did. And we started. And anyway, they voted me in as H&I secretary. And then I found out it was a 2-year commitment. And so I did H&I secretary, and, I found my niche in the world to serve H&I, whether it be on the area level, whether it be, like I do the other service because of my passion to get the message to inmates and in treatment centers. Have started several meetings, in the Northeast Georgia area, and they're still going on today. It's amazing. But I do the other levels of service in the committee to be accountable, and because if we're not accountable for the service that we're taking into these inmates, that's why we don't do H&I alone. We could lose that privilege. And so I felt it was important to take the minutes, and I felt it was important to make sure Cecil had something to take to the region. And anyway, so, I think we did that for a couple years, and then I became the vice chair, and did that for 2 years, and then I became the chair, and I did that for a couple years. And I was so glad when Jason was coming as the H&I area chair for his area, because, he's going to be our next secretary. So when I became chair, I'm like, Jason, I want to nominate you for secretary. And that was 8 years ago. How many years?
6 years ago.
6 years ago. So he's still there. I still go as often as I can. I've had some physical stuff going on. But, it's just been an amazing process when people have passion. And we've done a lot. We've updated the website. We hold H&I learning days. Region will pay for your area to host it. We have a budget for that. If you didn't know that, you need to be talking to your H&I area chair, because we have a budget at Region that will pay it will pay for the facility, for the food, for the iced tea, for you to hold a learning day and help you facilitate it if you've never done one, so you can learn. Because our roles as admin is to help educate you, to help you get the tools that you need to do service, to get more people involved. If you want to put on a H&I gratitude dinner, by God, we'll help you. We will do whatever it takes to help you get the people needed to serve your area and your facilities, because there's addicts in there that need to hear a message. And, so, we go through the same thing at every region. What's happening is we're here. We've been here for the longevity all this time. I guess I've been going now since I was secretary. So that was 12 years for me that I've been going to the Region H&I. Maybe longer, I don't know. Because I went for a year or so as the area H&I chair. So what happens is that we are still here, the admin is still here, but the area H&I chairs change every year. So they've only come 4 times, and then somebody new comes. So we're trying to educate new people. We're trying to help them learn We've got money to help you. We have, a workshop at Gricknam we want you involved in. Well, and I'm sad that none of those area H&I chairs are here today. I'm very saddened by that. Because we have, 16 areas?
There's a few here.
Oh, there's a few? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You should be, I'll bring you up here. It's sad though, out of 16, 18 areas, there's a few. There's only 2 or 3, it's hard when they only come in for 4 meetings and then they're moving on. And somebody else comes in for 4 meetings and then they're gone. And, so if you want to make a difference, you can follow in the footsteps of Jason and myself and, take another commitment on the region level because we're phasing out. Like, we have to have a spirit of rotation. It was the hardest thing ever for me to let go of being chair after all the work that we had done and the support that I had and the camaraderie. These guys did a great job, and every time when I hear Jason get asked a question, I'm like, I know he knows it. I know he knows the question. I know he knows the answer. And you know why? Because he read the H&I handbook. He read the H&I handbook, and that is all we need to do effective H&I service work. If your area has not sat down as a committee, H&I committee, and read the handbook, and you still have questions, we're here to help you. But I hope you have sat down and read it because it tells you everything you need to know. It talks about how you get the facilities to buy their own literature. It talks about, if there's what to do if there's issues with the meeting. It talks about what to do if there's issues in your committee, how to get more people involved, how to, serve on different levels. Has all these forms to fill out your reports. Like it's all right here. It hasn't changed because it hasn't needed to. When you see the car surveys come out about literature, what new literature do you need? You don't see anybody putting in H&I. It's proven to work if you work it. It's an amazing thing. And I will say this, that, there's other parts that fall under the umbrella of H&I. We have the Georgia Region Bridge Program. Not sure if anybody has heard about that. This is for inmates that are getting out within the next 6 months, and they could be up in Alto Prison and getting out and going to Valdosta. If they fill out this form for the bridge, we will send them a meeting schedule for Valdosta, wherever they're getting released to. We send them a welcome to NA pamphlet, a staying clean on the outside pamphlet, and we also provide a phone number that they can call if they want someone to meet them at their first meeting. Because it's scary getting out and going to your first meeting. I mean, I didn't make it there my first time.
That's right.
The bus picked me up in prison and took me to Key West, and I got off in Key Largo. Worst 5 days of my life. The future of H&I is you. Mm-hmm. It's not the addict that's not sitting in here. We need you. If you're here, you're interested, or you're already serving, or you want to be a part of the solution. There's problems. There's problems. We never have enough people to serve. We need people to, we don't have a regional H&I secretary right now. The vice chair for 8 region H&I is not going to be the chair. He's decided he can't serve anymore, for personal reasons. Jason, last meeting will be June. You will have a region admin committee. Now listen here, my area has gone through it where they didn't have an H&I chair. But you know what? There was enough addicts to still carry in a meeting. We didn't need a chair to serve the facilities, but we can't help educate you without a chair for the region, H&I. We can't facilitate that budget. that pays for you to have an H&I Learning Day in your area. We can't facilitate, like an option to have this, meeting here today to help educate you, to help give you hope and a willingness to serve H&I. I'm a product of H&I.
Mm-hmm.
I will always be a product of H&I, whether it doesn't matter how I serve, just that I know that we're doing, there's a plan. God has a plan. I got to trust that plan. If I'm sitting in this meeting, there's a plan going on, and I hope you choose the right path. And we need you for the future. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Sherry.
I'm gonna call Jason. Just one more thing before we circle up, just to encourage you. I know I failed to mention this, and I wanted to say it. Part of the hope that I received from these commitments, these long, continuous commitments, is I believe that I've made lifelong friends through being of service and in the H&I committee specifically. I've been lucky enough to have only 2 sponsors since I've been clean, and I sometimes relationships get strained, and especially sponsor-sponsee relationships where life gets in the way, and you get busy at work, and you get busy at this or that, and you fail to get together and whatever. But if you're committed to your service committee and if you actually show up for your commitments, there's nothing wrong with your chairperson saying, what step are you on? Hey, how about next time I see you, you be on the next step? And I know I'll never forget when I got asked to be to step up and serve as the vice chair for the Georgia Regional H&I Committee. The chairperson said, he looked at me and he said, "What step are you on?" And I said, "Huh?" He said, "What step are you on?" I said, at the time, I think I was on the 7th step again. He said, "Well, the next time I see you at Region, I want you to be on the 8th step." And I said, "Well, you my sponsor now?" And he said, "No, I'm not your sponsor now, but too much talk goes on about service-based recovery. And I don't want you to be one of those people who just is clean through service. Recovery happens through our 12 steps. And you got 3 service committee commitments that I know of. And I need to be sure that I'm mentoring you in more than just coming up here and being of service on this committee. You got to recover too." So that meant the world to me, that he cared enough about me to make sure I was working on me, not just working on filling his seat eventually. Let's see, it made it personal. And I wanted to share that. And
I have one more thing.
got one more thing too.
Okay, well, actually, I want to say 2 things. So when I mentioned the bridge program, our forms are not in 31 prisons either. We need your help to get the forms in there, especially because we don't have an H&I meeting in there. We need exposure of Narcotics Anonymous to these inmates that are getting out so we can get them in our meetings. And, talk about lifelong friends. Jason and I wrote that bridge program, which is so vital, to getting inmates to our first meeting, when they get out. But we wrote it. I was on an RV trip with my parents going to New York and Connecticut, and I don't know, we went to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the Hershey factory and all that. And as he's talking, I'm typing, and we're getting it all down, and we're like researching and Googling and all this stuff, and we wrote that, and it's an amazing program, and it comes from amazing heart. And I was honored to be able to, work with people that have this passion to solely help another addict. That's all it was about, ever. And we've done a few. We've sent quite a few meeting schedules to addicts, and we hope they're showing up in your meetings. The other thing is reaching out, which is a publication put out from the inside and from the outside, letters from inmates, and has everybody here heard about it? Reaching out, the publication? Okay, it has letters from inmates that are recovering on the inside, in prison, writing into Narcotics Anonymous, and it goes in this publication. And it has letters from the outside for addicts just like you that have been incarcerated, heard the message, got out, now serving H&I. If you were doing that and you were one of those people that are now serving H&I after hearing a message while being incarcerated, come see me. I will get your story published in the Reaching Out. I've been on the board with the World Board Reaching Out Committee for almost 3 years now, and we need letters from y'all. We need your help. We need to get the message back inside that it works when you get out. And, we get artwork from the inside. We need 8 pictures of H&I t-shirts that we publish in there. Whatever you got, you come see me. But it falls under the umbrella of H&I, just so you know. And I hope you can find all the publications on na.org under the publication section. We hope you come a part of. Thank you.
Thank you.